The second mental sphere functions as the residual area or receptacle of selective impulses that are rejected by the electroconductive, behavioral genetic template. On Earth, this template is known as the 64-unit DNA code and contains the information program for all life possibilities in planetary unfolding. This process concerns an aspect of biopsychic functioning hitherto unknown. See Chapter 11, Galactic DNA. When psychosensory impressions come to us, they are filtered through the 64-unit rune code located in the upper forepart of the corpus callosum. Information that corresponds to our present consciousness is accepted and integrated to our waking consciousness, while the rest of the impressions are filed into the unconscious. Some people refuse to examine the contents of their unconscious, and so accept as fact the messages from their unconscious. It is within this sphere that fundamentalism takes root, whether religious or some other inherited and unquestioned belief structure. For example, if inherited religious knowledge exceeds learned knowledge, then religious messages will be rudely repeated over and over again. Annals, thought forms, are produced, engraved, and stored in the unconscious. This corresponds in Buddhism to alaya, storehouse consciousness, and also to Carl Jung's collective unconscious. Jung determined that the collective unconscious was the deepest level of the human psyche that serves as the repository of inherited psychic structures and archetypal experiences. All karmas, results of previous actions, reside in seed state within the collective unconscious. As the collective unconscious, the second mental sphere is in resonance with the Psi Bank, the storage and retrieval system of the unconscious as a total planetary mind. The unconscious is stimulated automatically by the preconscious, as well as by constant input discarded by the conscious impressions. The unconscious provides spontaneous suggestion to the conscious, the third mental sphere. The conscious is shaped through unconscious selection of annals, thought forms. These annals are brought forward as interpreters of conscious mental sphere impressions that are not discarded. Also functions as storage and retrieval system for conscious mental functions to be used as needed, i.e., I am in Mexico, need to retrieve Spanish language. The unconscious is experienced as impulses to the continuing consciousness, the fourth mental sphere. Through higher mind control of the continuing conscious, interpreter annals that break into the conscious can be deflected or integrated into a composite higher mental perception. The unconscious provides the superconscious, the fifth mental sphere, with certain unused and conscientiously stored annals as structures or components of superconscious universal constructs. The unconscious receives direct signals and impulses from subliminal conscious, sixth mental sphere, often in the form of telegrams that activate dormant annals, understood as intuition or intuitive knowledge. The unconscious is reorganized by the holomind perceiver, the seventh mental sphere. When reorganized, the unconscious is stored through and realigned according to a hierarchy of new perceptions, like a research library fitted to the specific persona. This sphere perceives and contains fleeting and moment-to-moment awareness, also known as the scanner. It is responsive to immediate external stimuli and is meant to stabilize ordinary consciousness into cosmic awareness. The term conscious or consciousness has long been used in Eastern philosophy and religion, but the idea of it in Western philosophy is quite recent. René Descartes was the first Western philosopher credited for using the word conscious. though the word is traced to Cicero, who defined consciousness in terms of law and moral conscience, as the knowledge that a witness has of the deed of someone else. In this sense, conscious literally means with knowledge of. John Locke also wrote of consciousness in 1690 in his essays on human understanding, which he defined as the perception of what passes in a man's own mind. Also Samuel Johnson's Dictionary 1755 defines conscious as endowed with the power of knowing one's own thoughts and actions. This sphere is what meditation practice intends to keep clear. According to cosmic science, the third mental sphere, waking consciousness, gives commands to the etheric body system, including the chakras and central nerve centers. This is the control center of the third dimension, also known as the free will sphere. Lucidity of this sphere accommodates discriminating intelligence. The powers of free will and analytical discrimination are programmed into this sphere in precise patterns of consciousness. These patterns of connection are woven together based on the stitching of the psi bank, a mechanism unknown to most people. These patterns contain weavings of the past and future and can be mapped through the system of the synchronic order. The 4 levels of brainwaves are generated within this sphere and are experienced by the 3 higher spheres, 4, 5, and 6. While the alpha state characterizes meditation, the theta state characterizes sleep and dreams. The beta state is the normal waking consciousness that occurs discontinuously and with interruptions from the theta states. The delta state is rare and represents the total illuminating consciousness of avatars, Buddha mind. The third mental sphere is also the locus of ego. Unless ego is realized as a transient non-reality usurping reason for its own cause, there can be no evolutionary advancement into the fourth dimensional sphere. Those who are too egocentric cannot cross the threshold from conscious to continuing consciousness. As well-meaning as they may be, their attention span is short, saying one thing one day and forgetting it the next day. These are people who are not yet ready to hear about what is happening in the totality. The third mental sphere is influenced by impressions from all mental spheres. These impressions penetrate into waking consciousness. This is recognized through intuition, insight, etc. Because this mental sphere is the waking conscious scanner, when it is in a state of heightened awareness, it is receptive to input from any of the other spheres of consciousness, especially the second, fifth, and sixth. In fact, this is what is meant by the notion waking conscious mediumship. The waking conscious is controlled by the preconscious, first mental sphere, through set autonomic biological patterns that determine or inhibit the conscious program. This operating conscious program is summarized by the ego as illusion of false permanent self, circumstantial persona. The third mental sphere is controlled by the conscious through any number of set patterns of unconscious programs. The autonomic functions also give rise to some idea of permanent self, and consequently to ego as illusion of false permanent self. These programs are engendered by any number of conscious stimuli, affecting and distorting the quality and nature of the conscious mind. Third mental sphere, it intensifies sense of ego. The third mental sphere is affected by mental spheres 4 and 7. It is disciplined by the fourth mental sphere as ordinary cosmic awareness, meant to be medium of telepathic projective images. Gives commands to etheric body system, chakra, and subtle currents. When this awareness discipline is consciously exerted, it is known as natural mind meditation, intended to aid in the recognition of unconscious programs and illusory ego. The third mental sphere receives signals or commands from superconscious, 5th mental sphere, and subliminal conscious, 6th mental sphere. This occurs when the 3rd mental sphere is in a clear waking condition, free of unconscious thoughts from 2nd mental sphere or even subliminal 6th mental sphere. In samadhi, it is normal to receive subliminal impulses from the 6th mental sphere. When the 7th mental sphere is activated, it will cause the 3rd mental sphere to be in a permanent condition of waking conscious mediumship, the 3D radar scanner. This sphere is the seat of the 4D etheric other, the soul mind that responds to the 5D higher self. This is the sphere where you merge with nature, flowers, trees, rivers, mountains, where you feel communion with the all. Continuing consciousness is the ability to maintain direct awareness of a specific mental structure for a prolonged duration in order to establish and extend realization of the whole. This is done through conscious concentration. Concentration, dharani, means centering your mind on a fixed idea and thinking consciously or unconsciously upon it for a prolonged period so that it becomes part of your waking consciousness. This is the application of dharani and the basis of dhyani meditation as well as samadhi. This is the sphere where higher states of consciousness are maintained and that experiences original wakefulness, samadhi and divine contact, as well as telepathic receptivity. This is the normal mind state of the 4th dimensional essence self. The 3rd dimensional self can engage its own beta-beta conscious mediumship and alpha-alpha profound meditation states, becoming absorbed into the 4th dimensional continuing consciousness. This is known as profound meditation, samadhi, or stabilizing the intrinsic, unceasing self-existing wakefulness, or rigpa, true self-essence. This means when mind becomes stabilized through meditation, then it enters its own innate state of non-meditation. In its essence, meditation is only a means. Mystical experiences within the realm of continuing consciousness evolve toward becoming telepathically collective rather than individualistic. This mental sphere functions solely with the 4th dimensional other, the soul or essence self that responds to the higher self and influences the 3rd dimensional sphere with spiritual learning. The brainwaves function parallel to the 3rd sphere, with the exception that the beta and alpha states may be prolonged. Basically, we are dealing with a samadhi-like condition that is normal for this mental sphere. As the ability to concentrate for a prolonged duration on a single object or thought form, continuing consciousness wields a great expansive power that opens us to parallel universes. Parallel universes are accessed through continuing consciousness, which defines an amplitude of awareness. The dynamics of time defines parallel universes as coexistent thought moments to whatever thought moments we may be experiencing. Parallel universes are actually a function of subliminal consciousness, 6th mental sphere. It is the samadhi-like states of the 4th dimensional sphere that opens us to the 6th mental sphere. Continuing consciousness is the state when ordinary awareness is stabilized into 4th and 5th dimensional cosmic awareness. This state is created through meditation that enters the gap, space between thoughts, for a prolonged duration. This also relates to dhyana, uninterrupted flow of mindfulness, as described in the 8 limbs of yoga. As perceived by the 3rd dimensional sphere, 3D mind, this gap is usually a mere flicker at best, a break in the continuum of thought. The point of meditation is to stabilize the gap into a continuum of awareness.